Thank you very much for being here. I am Raina Park Shaw, the Councilwoman for Kansas City's 5th District, and I want to thank you for joining us today. We're here today to encourage residents citywide to complete the U.S. Census, either by going online to my2020census.gov, by calling 844-330-2020, or completing a paper questionnaire, or by responding on an in-person interview with the census taker. Kansas City's self-response rate is 55.9%. That's about 5 to 6% below the state completion rate. In particular, we're urgently requesting that residents who live in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th districts immediately respond to the census, as response rates in those council districts have been trending low since the beginning of census in mid-March. I would also like to share that beginning today, census takers will start going door to households who have not yet responded. If you have not yet responded to the census and a census taker shows up at your door, we encourage you to offer your full cooperation with census takers so that you can be counted. Census answers are 100% confidential. 100% confidential. Every Census Bureau worker takes a lifetime oath to protect confidentiality, and the Census Bureau ensures the data provided to identifying residents or their households shall not be released. I'll say one more time, census answers are 100% confidential. Residents can expect census takers to have an official ID badge that includes their name, their photograph, and Department of Commerce watermark, and an expiration date. They will have an official badge and Census Bureau issued electronic device, such as a laptop, a smartphone, bearing the Census Bureau logo. In light of the COVID-19 outbreak, the U.S. Census Bureau has adjusted 2020 census operations to protect the health and safety of the public and the Census Bureau employees. Census takers are trained to wear a mask, to conduct household interviews outside a home in an open, well-ventilated space, and when possible, to allow 6 feet of space between them and the person they are interviewing. They will also follow healthy hygiene habits of frequent hand washing, avoiding contact with high-touch surfaces, and will avoid touching their face. Residents can also anticipate seeing census workers in the community at places like gas stations or grocery stores, as the census has launched mobile questionnaire assistance centers. This innovative approach is designed to meet residents where they are and to maximize the census's reach and to serve as another way to encourage people to complete the census. Each person not counted in the state of Missouri could result in a potential loss of $1,272 per person. The federal government allocates more than $675 billion annually to communities based in part on census data, including healthcare, community development, housing, education, transportation, social services, employment, and much more. Census data impacts and influences on daily to a yearly basis and helps determine decisions made by the government. For example, CARES Act funding was allocated to cities with populations over $500,000. And Kansas City's last census data was slightly under that threshold. I also want to take this time to thank Chanel Hicks, Senior Partnership Specialist based at Chicago Regional Census Center in the U.S. Census Bureau, where she and her team have been on the ground working with us within our districts to help us assist us in accomplishing our census goals. The 5th district response rate is 52.9%. Everyone counts. Please do your part to complete the census. At this time, I would like to take a moment to read a statement from Councilwoman Catherine Shields, and then we'll hear from our mayor. Catherine Shields is staying at home during the pandemic, but she did want to respond with this. There is one thing that everyone in the United States, citizens and even non-citizen residents, are expected to participate in: the census. The census is so important that it is enshrined in the United States Constitution. How important? Without participating in the census, we lose out on federal tax dollars that should go to educate our kids, to fight poverty, and to provide for health care and public safety, all because we literally don't count. Even our right to vote can be watered down when voting districts are drawn using inaccurate data. It is vital to our city and to each one of us that we participate in the census, whether you respond online or by mail or answer the door to hardworking census takers. One way or the other, please participate. Participating in the census is the way for everyone, no matter what race or ethnicity or sexuality, to announce to Washington and to Jefferson City that we count, we matter, and we won't be ignored. Again, that was a statement from Councilwoman Catherine Shields, our 4th District at-large councilwoman. Thank you. And now we'll hear from our mayor.
Oh, thank you. Thank you all so much. I'm Quentin Lucas, Mayor of Kansas City, and I'm actually for once going to break news for you and something that you may not know. So there's been a lot of conversation in Kansas City last week about how the federal government doesn't necessarily tell us everything we need to know about things happening here. I actually need to give credit to a cabinet secretary in the Trump administration, and that is U.S. Secretary of Commerce Wilbur Ross, who called my office and called me last Friday to talk about the census and to talk about the efforts that their good folks from their Chicago regional office and throughout the country are doing to make sure we get our responses up. I didn't get a chance to talk a lot about that because nobody seemed to care, but I was very touched by the fact that the Secretary of Commerce thought it was important enough that we could make our voices heard here in Kansas City. And I think this is part of an effort, and I commend the Census Bureau for this, to make sure that every community, every walk of life, everybody knows that we want to hear from you. That's why we have the Tu Cuentas Complete Su Censo 2020 up there, because it is vital. And right now, that 55.9% response rate in Kansas City is not enough, particularly when you break it down district by district. Councilwoman Park Shaw had the 5th district number. I actually don't know the 3rd district number where I live, but I know it can be better, and I know it should be better, and it has to be. I have spent probably at least a few hours of every day for the last several months trying to get more money, right? Trying to get more money for Kansas Cityans, and a big part of that is because, right, we were just below some of the areas we needed to be in the census. So make sure, much like you tell your friends and neighbors when they need to get out to vote, and you need to get them to do that too, ask people, have you filled out your census yet? Have you gone online? It's very easy to do. Make sure you do that. The other thing that I think is important for you to do, and that's some of what Councilwoman Park Shaw noted, dispel some of those myths about the census, right? Nobody's trying to get some secret information about you, anything like that. What we're trying to do is actually just count you and make sure you count, make sure our community counts, make sure all of us count, of every demographic group and every background. So I hope we've already had our census kickoff. That was April 1st. It was a very different kind of time, but we're going to make sure that we keep pushing it. Even during a pandemic, it's vital that you be counted. We have had the census since the beginning of this republic. And actually, it dates back far longer than that, as you all know, if you've read the Bible and all of that. So nevertheless, the census is something that we have to make sure we do. Even in a pandemic, despite any challenges, make your voices heard. And thank you all so much, particularly my friends from the census, for coming to Kansas City. They'll be out on the streets to make sure we hear from all of you. Thank you. And I think the person following me is America's councilman from the 4th District, Eric Bunch.
I can't see it, but I'm smiling under this mask because this is an ongoing joke, and I appreciate it. And thanks for putting this on, and thanks especially to Councilwoman Park Shaw for helping organize this. We're getting a little feedback here. I don't know if everyone else hears that. Hey. Thanks everyone for showing up, and my name's Eric Bunch. I'm the 4th District and District City Council person, and I'm here because the 4th District, like the 3rd and the 5th, is very underreported right now. I want to encourage every person, not just 4th District, but especially the 4th District, because we are behind, to respond to that online. It took me less than 5 minutes to respond to the census with 3 young kids. I had to remember all their birthdays, and I was successful in putting in the correct birthdays. So you'll need to know how many people live in your house and what their birth dates are and things of that nature, but it's very fast and very easy. The most important thing, the greatest thing about the 4th District is how diverse we are. And I want to make sure that that diversity is shown through by our participation in the census. We talk a lot about how much money is allocated based on census data, but it's also very important for us to know, to have that important data about what our communities are truly like and what makes up our amazing communities like in the 4th District. So please take just a few minutes. You can get all the information you need to know by going to kcmo.gov/census to get all the information about how to actually fill this out and respond ahead of time. So we want to make sure that you respond ahead of time before the census workers come and knock on your door. We like having the census workers out in our communities, but you can get ahead of this and do it quickly by doing it online. So I encourage you to do that. Again, just takes a few minutes to knock that out. And just be prepared for a little bit of information. But again, kcmo.gov/census is your local resource for all that. For those of you who have already filled out the census and self-reported, please talk to your neighbors, talk to your family members, talk to your friends, make sure that they have filled it out as well. So please, this is absolutely vital. This is a responsibility, but it should also be seen as a privilege to participate in government in this way. So again, kcmo.gov/census is your resource, and we look forward to seeing our count come up here pretty soon. So thank you all so much.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Melissa Robinson, and I represent the 3rd District in District. And today we have a unique opportunity. It's an opportunity for us to encourage every resident in the city of Kansas City to ensure that they're telling their story. That's all the census is about. It's about telling your story. And a way for us to collect the demographics that we need in order to make sure that we have the resources that not only helps our city, but that helps our neighborhood and that helps to support every household. This is an opportunity for us to collect the data to make sure that our city is counted. And what does that mean? That means that we have improved dollars to help repair our streets, for employment programs, for child care programs. And so we really need that information so that we can have the resources we need in order to do our jobs to make sure that our city is the best city. This is the best city that we can be. My dad always taught me not only to look at the glass half full, but to look at it, not to look at the glass half empty, but to look at the glass half full. So I'm not going to talk about where we are now, I'm going to talk about where we need to be. In 2010, the 3rd District, we came in at 73.5% of individuals who were counted. So right now I want to challenge everyone. This is our challenge 5 for the 3rd District to come in at least at 78.5. That's what we're here to do, and that's what we're here to talk about, is that the 3rd District, we want to compete with our best self and to make sure that we are counted, and again, to make sure that we have the resources that we need. So what is my office willing to do in order to help us to make that happen? One, the City of Kansas City has materials that are available. We will be sharing those materials with all of our businesses throughout the 3rd District. So if you see a flyer, just to remind you to go to someone give me the kcmo.gov/census, and that way you have the information that you need, but to fill out the census. But also we're asking all of our clergy, our church leaders, to remind their parishioners to complete the census. Our neighborhood leaders, we all have a role to do. And we have an area in the 3rd District that we're particularly concerned about, and that is the area between Woodland and Paseo. Linwood to 39th Street. It's the lowest area in the entire city. So I might be knocking on your doors, because if I can knock on your doors to be elected, I can knock on your doors to make sure you're counted. So just please go online. We can use our phones. It only takes 10 minutes, but just know that your story matters, and that you count, and we're depending on you to make sure that we count. Thank you.
And at this time, we will hear from Debra Stanley. She is the Assistant Regional Census Manager for the Chicago region. Debra.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to thank this awesome team for everything that they are doing in supporting the census. I am honored to be here. I must say this first, though. I'm a little bit biased because Kansas City is my home. So I want you to know that we are really excited to start launching the non-response follow-up operation out of Kansas City. So thank you very much. And I want to just reiterate some of the things that have already been said. Our mission is to count everyone once, only once, and in the right place. The census is safe. It's easy, and of course, you know it's important to your communities to receive your portion of that $675 billion that's allocated to state, federal, and local governments. So that is definitely something that we want to make sure happen. Kansas City is one of our great cities. We want to thank everyone again for your hard work. The response rate in the state of Missouri is 62%. So I know that with the push today, that maybe by even tomorrow, you'll be past that 62% because we are working together to make sure that that happened. The census is, again, safe, important, it's easy. We are conducting several operations. One of the operations that we'll be launching in July is our faith-based initiative. The Complete Count Committee will be working with faith-based organizations throughout your city to make sure that everyone is counted. One of the things that I want to re-emphasize and bring to your attention is our census workers. They are trained. We do follow CDC guidelines, and we are sworn for life confidentiality. If that confidentiality is violated, $250,000 fine and 5 years imprisonment. Those are some of the things that could happen. So you know that for most of us, we will definitely abide by the confidentiality and the information that is given during the census. So with that being said, again, I want to thank you. I'm excited about Kansas City. I look forward to continuing working with you. And again, the Chicago Regional Director, Ms. Marilyn A. Sanders, she want to thank all of you, Mr. Mayor, Councilwoman, councilpersons, should I say, for everything that you're doing. And we definitely will continue to work hard together. Our mission, again, count everyone once, only once, and in the right place. Thank you very much.
Now we'll entertain any questions.
As we talk about racial justice and racial equity in that country, how does that connect to an accurate census count, and how do those two interact?
Racial justice and equity relate to census. I don't want to get you in trouble with bureaucracy. The question relates to how does the census relate to kind of the conversations we've been having on racial justice and equity. I think there are a few things and a few reasons we're here today. The low response rate, at least in the 3rd and the 5th district, which are majority black districts, does give us some grave concern. There's a reason Councilwoman Robinson notes that we really want to get that number up high in those areas because we want to make sure everybody of every group, of every demographic is counted, because this will relate to how we allocate our resources. And when you talk about your resources, that is dollars in our city that relates to housing, public works investments, so many things that are core to what local government, state government, and federal governments do is really based on what our population numbers are. I think another thing that is actually important is when we talk about recognition, which is what I've heard a lot about in the last month or two, right? Recognizing people, recognizing where we've been and frankly where we need to go, as Councilwoman Robinson noted. I think a big part of that recognition and where we need to go relates to the fact that we need to know who's there, what's there, and what challenges we have. Knowing things, for example, and the Census Bureau, by the way, provides an incredible amount of data that we use in lots of things. The American Community Survey is foundational to how we do actually our housing policies, our housing proposals, both at the state, local, and federal levels, right? That is something that this operation is a part of, right? Figuring out actually how we allocate dollars ranging from law enforcement to health equity. All of those, which I think are core racial equity issues, are things that just answering the census questions can do for you. And so that's why this is so important for us now. And that's why just taking this step is part and parcel to what people can do to, I think, build a more racially equitable city and community.
I also want to take a stab at that question because oftentimes in the community as elected leaders, we hear that the tale of two cities. They have, we don't have. And so the very foundation of that is that we're able to define that by numbers and by data, and to be able to say that this is where the inequity lies, and this is by how much the disparity is, and this is the gap that we need to be able to close. But foundational in that is to say, I'm here, I'm present. The other thing that we need to be looking at is how the political subdivisions are divided. And it's divided by our ability to respond to the census. I was once on the school board, and we redrew the lines for the school board. We had a school board that reflected more of the children that went to the school district, and because of the redrawing of the lines, because of the census data, that flipped and changed. And so if you want people that represent your neighborhood to be able to speak to your needs, then you need to respond to the census, because it impacts not only us financially, but it impacts us civically, and it gives elected leaders like myself and all of us up here to be able to define what the needs of our city are and how can we apply an equity approach if we don't have the data.
Something that hasn't really been mentioned yet, and again, the 4th District is home to a very diverse population. A district with thousands of people who've immigrated here from all over the world, and I want to make sure that everyone understands that the census is counting people who live here, regardless of your immigration status. So in the 4th District, that is one of the most exciting things about Kansas City and the 4th District specifically, of just how diverse we are. But I want to make sure that you understand, that everyone out there understands that this is important to count you regardless of your immigration status. So I think that is also an important aspect to racial and social justice, and making sure that every Kansas Citian is counted, and that includes our residents who've relocated here from all over the world.
The 3rd District, and you can step forward if you want, the third District definitely has traditionally been the lowest counted area, I think, then followed by the 5th District, which is my district. Yes.
Is that something that we could possibly go get?
No. And you can answer that, I'm sorry.
That would be a violation of PII and so forth, so you would have someone going to jail.
areas, how do you deal with language barriers?
Actually, we do have tracks that we know where to recruit. We recruit in all areas, tracks where we know that there is diversity. One of our goals is to recruit people from all communities and all ethnic groups. So that is one of the most exciting things about the census, is that we recruit everywhere, people where they live. Because of course, you know that people respond to people that, represent them, so.
Thank you all for being here.